Good morning. William Caldwell was an evangelist involved in big tent type meetings all around the world that were known for miraculous healings that occurred at these meetings. And he wrote a book called Frontline Evangelism, and about this covers his meetings in Malacca, and talks about the miraculous healings that took place at these meetings. And he writes, each week prayer meetings held in our each were held, and our faith began to rise. So as they have these faith meetings with the assistant ministers, and the faith begins to rise, and the people, as they're hearing the word of God, faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God, and so the people are fed the word of God, and their faith rises. And it says faith began to rise. The church began to pray and believe God together with us for a miracle. So they were praying and they were believing. Their faith begins to rise in miracles, and they begin to believe that miracles are going to happen because they're hearing the word of God. They're hearing about the miracles in the Bible. And then it says, by the time Brother Caldwell arrived, we were already experiencing great things from God. So they were already expecting great things from God. So when Brother Caldwell arrives, the fields are ripe for picking, right? In the most positive way. The people are believing, and when faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So the people have the faith now. They have the expectation, and they have to believe. Even in the Bible, Jesus said, because you believed, your faith has made you whole. And so the people are believing. They're in a state expecting miracles, which means ripe for miracles. Okay, because by the time Brother Caldwell arrived, people were already expecting great things from God, and what he did was far more than anything we could ask or think. Okay, because God responds to that faith and acts. And what happened? Many cripples walked during the meeting. Right here in the book, many cripples walked. Cripples walked. Now, I know of a prayer meeting from years ago that it's a secondhand story. People I worked with had all gone to this prayer meeting. One of them went in a wheelchair, which she had been in for years and years. And after that, she never was in a wheelchair again. She had a miraculous healing at this prayer meeting. So that was not something that ended shortly thereafter. That was best, as long as I knew her, she was never in a wheelchair again. So that was incredible. Many cripples walked during those meetings, and a dozen or more who were blind in one or both eyes were healed. So the blind received their sight, and others were mentally depressed, found peace. So others who were depressed found peace. Okay, so if you're depressed and you find peace, that can be life-saving for sure. Absolutely. So these are incredible miracles that were occurring at these meetings. And so how does that, as a former Protestant, by the way, that story that I told you about, that the people I worked with, one of them was healed at a meeting. That was a Protestant meeting, and that was a real healing. And but what about in the Catholic Church? Does this stuff happen? Yeah, it certainly does. I know of a Catholic ministry where they would go. That's what they did. They would go around and pray for people. It wasn't quite the same format where they have the big tent meeting and the preaching and all of that, but it was a prayer ministry, intercession prayer ministry. They would go around and they would pray for those who needed healing. Sometimes they would get incredible, absolutely biblical miracles that would happen right in front of them. And it's an old book, that's why I talk in past tense. I haven't checked up if they're still around. But other times it would take, other times it wouldn't be. And I don't know if it was a matter of faith or if it was just a matter of God's will in that particular situation. I can tell in my own personal life, without getting into any specific details, I know I've personally prayed, and it took for a couple of years, but that miracle absolutely happened, and it was a miracle that was an absolute, it was a huge miracle. But it did take a couple of years of prayer in that case, essentially from a medical standpoint, a hopeless situation. Um, and wow, what a blessing. So, all right. So anyway, if God doesn't heal us, in something dramatic, like the story of the true story of that I told you of the woman healed at the prayer meeting. Well, that doesn't always happen, and if it doesn't mean that all hope is lost. What it means is sometimes the Lord works in mysterious ways, and in some cases it may take a couple of years of prayer. And so I know of another Protestant minister. This was the case for him. He went and prayed for a girl. I believe every week it was in a situation where she was. It's a long time since I read that story, but I believe she was in bed and she was crippled. And he went and prayed for her every week. And I believe it took he used to stay with her and pray for like an hour every single week by her bedside. And after about a year, she found her healing. So I'll probably talk about that again later on, that story. But all right, thanks for watching. God bless.